Good morning, everyone. Welcome to LisaBug Yin Yoga on this beautiful sunny morning here in Minneapolis. We need today one or two yoga blocks if you have those available, or a couple of small books works great, a yoga strap, and an optional little cushion or a blanket to use as a prop to support. So in the month of March, we are working on finding length, so really focusing on flexibility. Some of these poses, as all of them can be with yoga and yin yoga, are not really that comfortable for everybody. So I really want to try to provide options for you. We're going to be focusing on opening up the hips and holding for a period of time. I want you to release from these poses if you're feeling uncomfortable, or modify them to suit you. We'll be starting on our back today. So let's come down onto your mat, and just a nice comfortable position, laying supine. And we're just going to begin to open up the hips just a little bit with some mobility. So place your feet flat onto your mat. Open your feet wide and your knees wide as well. Feel your abs gently bracing, and start to move through windshield wipers. So we'll drop both knees to one side. Your opposite hip will lift up, and then both knees to the other side, and that hip lifts. So what this does for us this morning is it starts to release some tension in our spine, our lower back, and our hips. So this puts us in a gentle twist. Your shoulder blades stay nice and planted into the mat. And just start to notice where you feel this gentle stretch. So for me, as I drop my knees to the left, I feel my right hip flexor and quad stretching just a little bit. And then when I drop my knees to the right, I feel a little gentle release in my left hip flexor and left quad. I'm also feeling just a soft stretch in my lower back into the quadratus lumborum, lower back region. And we're just starting to send a little bit of synovial fluid into the hip joints. And that fluid acts as a shock absorber and just nourishes the joint, provides those nutrients, and allows the stretches that we do to feel more comfortable. This is also so gently warming up the knees and the ankles. So let's take one more to each side. And then come back to center. Lengthen the legs out and open your feet about the same width as your mat, so a little wider than hips distance apart. And I want you to notice where your right leg is and start to bring your left leg over across that right leg. So this is going to open up your hip a little bit on this left side. Bring your arms above your head and grab your left wrist with your right hand and pull your upper body over to the right. So this is Banasana, and it shapes the body like a banana. So we're opening up the left side of our waist and our rib cage. And if holding your arms above your head doesn't feel comfortable for you, you can just relax them across your chest, but still get that curving of your body, opening up the left side. And just breathe deeply in and out through the nose. And then as you release that wrist, bring your upper body back to neutral. You can lower your arms down. Uncross your ankles. Bring the left leg out to the side about as wide as your mat. And then take your right ankle over your left leg. Bring the arms above the head. Grab your right wrist with your left hand and pull your body over to the left. Open up your lat, your armpit. And you can do anything you'd like with your head. You can keep your eye gaze up towards the ceiling, or you could turn your head to the left and add a little twist. And then begin to breathe into the right side of the ribs. Again, if your shoulders bother you, just stay where you are and bring your arms down. And this is just a gentle release all along that side body, that line from the inside of the armpit down through the outside of the hip, maybe even a little bit into the IT band on the outside of the right thigh, and down into the ankle. And breathing deeply, and notice when you breathe in really deeply, you feel more of a stretch in your rib cage. And then we'll bring the arms back down, bringing the upper body back to neutral. Uncross the ankle and bring your legs straight back down the center line. Get yourself nice and comfortable. Drop your shoulders away from your ears, and we'll come into tree pose. So this is a reclining tree. We're going to bring that right knee up. You can use your hand to pull it up a little higher if you want. Place the sole of your foot to the left inner thigh, and then let this right knee just open. Now you might like to have a little support under this outside of your right leg. So that's where a block can come in handy, or a little blanket or pillow. Just tuck it under there so that you can just relax into a little bit of support. And we are here for 2 minutes releasing this hip flexor. Now your arms can just be to the side of your body here, or you can bring them into goalpost arms. So the elbows lift about shoulder height or slightly lower. Palms are facing up to the ceiling with a little bit of release for the heart center. You can also reach the arms further above the head, making a little bit of a circle from your armpit through your elbows, through your fingertips. Just make sure your arms are relaxed and they're not hanging up off the mat. So if you're here in goalpost and you can't touch your wrists to the floor, then bring your arms down a little lower, or you can extend your arms straight out like a T. And just find a nice rhythmic breath in and out through the nose. And try to soften that right hip flexor. So you may be so flexible that you can actually just flop that knee out and it rests on the mat and you're not feeling much of a stretch. But that's okay. That is your range of motion, and just come into a place there where you can relax. Our yin poses don't have to be super intense. Those stretches can be soft and minimal. And we'll take one more breath here. Inhale deeply. Exhale completely. Close that right knee back in. You can use your hand to give it some assistance and slide your leg out to straight. Readjust your shoulders, your spine in neutral. And then we'll do the same thing on that left side. So bring the left foot up towards the inner thigh. Open that knee out, using your block or other props for support. And sometimes you can notice right away if you have a difference between right and left sides. Try not to grip your glute on that left leg. So just soften through that gluteal muscle. And you can choose the same arm position, or maybe try something a little bit different. Just give yourself a nice relaxing stretch through the chest. And then find the breath. So in our yin class this month, we've used an equal ratio breath pattern where we inhale and exhale the same duration. We've also used a 3-part breath where we inhale into the belly, the heart, and the ribs. And then the ribs, heart, and belly. And we've also used a sinking breath where we inhale maybe a count of 3 and exhale twice as long, perhaps a count of 6. So these are all wonderful breath patterns. I just want you to choose today what you'd like to do, what feels right in your body, or mix it up a little bit. Try all 3 styles of the breath. Eyes can be closed, really relax and soften. And see if you can relax just maybe 10% more. Our final breath in here. And exhale. Closing that left knee back in. And then we'll bend both knees and just hug the knees right up into the chest and create some small little circles here for your lower back. So the knees can be tight together, they can be slightly separated. You can have the toes touching, the knees open. And then reverse those circles. So a pose we're going to be working on today is called the shoelace in yin pose. In traditional yoga, it's called Gomukhasana, cow face. So what we'll do on our back to try this pose is bring in your knees to tabletop, take your right leg and cross it all the way over your left, and you're crossing it above the knee, and then separate your ankles as far as you can from right to left. So this is different from the figure 4 stretch. I don't have my ankle on top of my thigh. I have my knees stacked together. So I'm squeezing them tight. Now you might just relax here as you are and just let your hips stretch. Our next goal is to reach up and see if we can grab our ankles or our shins somewhere along here and then lay back down. So we're slightly pulling our ankles towards us. Sometimes people can't get both ankles. So if you can just get one, it's probably going to be your left or your right one because that one's crossed on top. And then we'll relax into this stretch. Now you can play with this position a little bit as we're holding. You can drop your heels closer down to your buttocks. You can lift your heels slightly upward more, or you can pull them out a little bit more. So kind of play with this and see what feels best for you. We're doing it on our back first because this pose is typically done seated and it's much more difficult to sit up in this pose. When we're seated in the pose, the heels are underneath the body a little bit more. So you might want to try to pull them down and outward because that's going to imitate the pose in the seated position a little bit more. So once we come to seated and try this pose, if it's not working for you, I want you to remember what this is like on your back because you're going to come back on your back and repeat it again. If sitting up bothers your knees or your hips, your ankles, anything, if it doesn't feel right, we'll come to this position on your back. Okay, we've been here just about 2 minutes, so let's take one more breath. And then exhale. Release those ankles. And then we'll just cross the other way right off the bat. So left ankle or left knee crosses over right thigh. And you can just relax and hold it here. Separate your ankles as far away from your body as you can. And then try to reach up. See if you can grab those ankles or shins. Find something that you can reach. And then lay back down. If you've got your ankles and you can't lay all the way back down and your head's up, I don't want it hanging here in space. You can reach for your yoga block or maybe a little pillow and support your head here so you've got this nice comfortable position while you're holding on to those feet. And then play with this again. Maybe bring your heels down more, up more, out more. But we're not cranking and really pulling hard on this. Our hands are just kind of resting there to give yourself a little bit of extra resistance and weight into that stretch. So we really never try to force these beyond our edge. Come back to the breath and just relax. Let's check our timer. And just notice where you're feeling this. For me, it's more in my left hip than it is on the right, that one that's crossed on top. Feeling that in the outside of the glute. So if this is feeling really tight, chances are you won't be able to do it really comfortably sitting up. But that's absolutely fine. Know that you can come back here. Let's take one more breath. And exhale. And we'll uncross. And then set your feet back down and do just a couple more windshield wipers before we come up to a seated position. Just rocking back and forth. And then you can either roll over onto your side and press yourself up with the strength of your arms, or just curl yourself up, reaching your hands under the bottoms of the legs will rise up. Okay. So before we do the shoelace here, we're going to try half shoelace. So take your yoga strap, and then if you want, you can sit up onto your cushion a little bit. Have your blocks at the ready if you need them for support. So for half shoelace, we're going to take the left leg to straighten or tuck a little something under your knee for support. And then the right leg folds over the left, so you have the knees stacked here. So if this isn't comfortable, my go-to pose is seated tree. And we just did tree on our back, so the tree we can come here. And it's a wonderful hip opener too, so if you come into shoelace, you're like, no, it's not going to work today, then come into that tree pose. So in traditional yoga, this is half cow face. And the knee that's on top, we take that arm, we reach it up, we bend the elbow, and I just want you to give yourself a stretch here in the tricep. We're just going to hold this portion of the pose for about 60 seconds. If you want a little more, you can side bend over and open up the side ribs just like we did in Banasana. And breathe. So try not to tuck your chin, and anytime your hand is behind your head, there's that tendency to drop it. Lift your head way up, pressing the back of the head into your forearm or wrist, whatever's behind you there, as you stretch. Now, if this is not a comfortable stretch, bringing your arm above the head, a great option is to stretch that arm across. We still get a beautiful stretch for your shoulder and a little bit in the upper back. All right, release the stretch in the arm and take your yoga strap, and we're going to bring that underneath the bottom of your extended leg foot. And then pull your toes back towards you. Sit up tall. If this is enough stretch for you, you don't have to lean forward. If you'd like a little more, fold over that leg and hold this stretch. We're here about 60 seconds. But if you're doing this class later, you can pause the video, hold this longer. Or if you're doing this stretch in your own practice at home, you can determine the length that you'd like to hold each of these stretches. And we come back to the breath. Now this might have become more of a hamstring stretch than a hip stretch in this pose, but that's great. We can stretch two areas of the body simultaneously and breathe. And we're breathing more into the back body, the back ribs. All right, let's release that yoga strap. Come back up and unfold the leg from half shoelace or your tree pose. Flex and point your ankles. A little pump just to get the blood pumping back through the lower extremity. Okay, so let's see where you go on the other side. We're going to take that left knee, bring it across. And I think this is called shoelace in yin because actually the top of the foot is more to the floor where your shoelaces are. And we'll see how this feels. If it's not okay for you, then bring it out here and come to tree. And you can use your yoga block to prop that knee up in your tree pose. Okay, let's bring that left arm up. Bend, give your elbow a pull, and stretch your tricep. Adding maybe a side bend. Keep your head neutral. Breathe into this side waist. And your option here for shoulder issues is just to stretch this arm straight across and open up through the deltoid and a little bit in that upper back rhomboid area. So there's a lot of things going on in this stretch. So we only take a pose to that place where we feel the strain, or not strain beginning, but the stretch in the tightest muscle. So for you, that might be the hip, the hamstring, the low back, the tricep, the lats. So the tightest muscle determines your edge in this pose. All right, we have time for one more breath here. And then exhale, come back up, release that arm. And option to use your yoga strap under the bottom of that right foot. All right, pull your toes back. That's going to give you the first stretch there in the posterior chain. And then if you'd like to, come forward. And you can come forward with a flat back, neutral spine, or you can slightly round your back as long as that feels okay in your lower back. Keep a little bit of engagement in your core, in your transverse abdominis. And find the breath in the back ribs. Just about 60 seconds here in this pose. Now, when we get to full shoelace, if you're having trouble with half shoelace in your hips, I want you just to go ahead and come back down onto your back to do full shoelace, because chances are you won't be able to do it. Although I have a couple of little modifications and options that might work if you've got blocks to sit up on. You'll know when you get there if it's going to be okay for you. Let's take one more breath here. And release that yoga strap. Come up. Unfold the leg, extend it out. And then flex point, flex point. So before we do our full shoelace, we're going to do just a short caterpillar in Yin Yoga. It's essentially a forward fold. So using your yoga strap, just place it under the bottom of both feet. Pull it up. And you can be upright, or you can hinge forward with a straight back. Or you can scoop your belly, brace your abs, and round forward like a caterpillar. Little hunch as it's inching along. If you don't need the yoga strap, maybe you can grab your feet or peace fingers around the big toes, pull yourself forward, or relax your elbows down to the floor and breathe. So again, the tightest muscle determines your edge. And if that's your lower back, then back off on that stretch a little bit so your lower back relaxes. If it's your hamstrings, you might need to bend your knees a little bit. Same thing with your calf muscles. And just one more breath here. Then exhale, release the yoga strap, and roll yourself up. So coming into our full shoelace, if you know you need to lay down on your back, you can do that now. If you've got blocks and you want to try this, I have a little bit more of a sneaky way to get into the pose. So I'm going to bring my yoga blocks close by. I had another one behind me, because I might need a double stack. So I want you to come onto your hands and knees. And then what you're going to do is bring your right knee in front of your left and cross your legs over at your knees. And I want you to open your ankles to the sides as far apart as you can get them. And then I'm going to bring my yoga blocks behind me so I have something to sit on. And I'm going to just sit back up on those yoga blocks. So now that I'm here, I'm like, well, I might be able to go down just a little bit more. So I'm going to release one of my blocks. And I can come down. Good. So this is one way we can get into our shoelace. Another way is without coming from our hands and knees, is we can just sit first. Left leg is tucked under. Right leg crosses over, and we open those shoelaces to the floor. And our goal is to try to stack these knees as much as we can. So options: sitting on blocks, laying on your back. Another option is just to do half shoelace again and straighten out the bottom leg that's underneath you. Okay, the knee that's on top, you're going to reach that arm up, pull it back, stretch, and then the other arm reaches behind and we try to touch those fingers. Now your yoga block or your strap is a great tool to use here. So we can bring it behind, reach back and inch those fingers together as closely as we can. All right, so have you gotten comfortable? found a place that's going to fit for you. So from this moment, we are going to hold another 1 minute's time. If you're sitting up, you can lean forward a little bit if you'd like, or just stay upright. Remember, if you're on your back, you're just reaching those ankles and laying comfortably and holding that stretch. Whew, this is a big one. Really feeling a lot in the hips. So if you feel anything that's disconcerting in your knees, I want you to very carefully exit the pose right away, because I don't want your knees to take any of a twist or pressure in this pose. It should be in your hips. We have 20 seconds. Breathe. Last breath in. And exhale, release the arms first, the back one behind you. Let's go first. Very carefully bring it around. And then release the top arm. And very carefully unfold your legs. Now, if you're laying on your back, you can come back to a couple of windshield wipers on your back. If you're seated, we're going to do our windshield wipers in a seated position. So your feet come out wider than your hips. You're just going to drop one and then the other, back and forth just a couple of times. How'd we do? Okay, so the right knee was on top of the left knee on that set. So now we're going to reverse. If you need to come to your hands and knees, use your blocks and sit back. Come into that position. Otherwise, we're going to tuck the right one under, the left one over. Oh, you know what? This is another modification. Ooh, I just came into another option. If getting this foot underneath you and stacking is not applicable for you, you can do this one. Yes. Okay. So let's come into that place where we feel as comfortable as possible. There's no pain in any knees or joints. We've got props that we need here. And then we'll do the other arm in cow face. I always have to use my strap for this one because I do not have flexible shoulders. Okay, let's bring that arm up, take it back, and reach behind. So this is full cow face or full shoelace in yin terms, Gomukhasana in Sanskrit terms. And you're taking this pose to your tightest muscle, and that's your edge here. Whatever option you need to take. Sitting tall, just under 1 minute to go here. Come back to the breath. And just try to make sure you're not gripping anything, because you might be sitting here and just squeezing and clenching your glutes or your inner thighs. Just try to relax. Let that all go. Let the stretch happen. But know that if you feel uncomfortable at all, it's time to come out. Beautiful. 10 seconds, maybe 2 more breaths. And exhale, that lower arm releases first, and then the top arm. Set that yoga strap off to the side and very carefully unfold those legs. When we're all wrapped up like a pretzel, if we try to get out of it too soon, we might strain a joint or muscle, so we always come out super slow. Let's do a couple more windshield wipers, side to side. Great, just check in and see how you're feeling. And then come back to center, bring the soles of the feet together, And we'll come into butterfly. So we'll just open both knees out, let them soften. You can set your elbows right here to the insides of your knees if you'd like. You can take hold of your ankles, but not your feet, because we have a tendency to pull up and strain that talofibular ligament. So we can just relax and fold forward here. So I believe we did this one in our first yin class of the month. We have options where we can support the head by bringing a block and placing our forehead right here to relax. And just let those hips release. And we're just here a few more breaths. Our poses in today's class are just a little bit shorter than what we've been doing in the last couple of classes. If you go back in this and repeat this and you have the time, I'd like you to increase the length of these stretches. But I wanted to get through a nice series so you could see how these poses link together and how they open up the hips. All right, release that block. Our next hip opener pose is called fire log pose. So the option for fire log, if you're really tight, is simple cross-leg pose. So you would just sit cross-legged with your right ankle in front. From here, you would fold forward and stretch your hips and your lower back. Fire log pose, we take the feet and we bring them forward just a little bit more away from our body, and we want to flex our ankles, really flex them. And then we can take this right leg up and set it to the inner thigh of the left leg. Now for me, this one is like, whoo, no go. I've got too tight in my hips. But maybe if I have a block here and I can support one block under this knee, and I can support one block under this knee, maybe I can relax in it. Probably not. So the next option for me that I can do is I can slide this foot further towards my calf. So it's not up as high on my inner thigh. I've slid it down. I'm actually putting my foot kind of in the crease where my knee bends. And then if I get my blocks and support, okay, I can get comfortable here now. I can still feel a hip stretch. So lots of things that you can work on to find a place that feels comfortable for you. And we'll hold and breathe 60 seconds here now that we found a spot. And we want to fold forward, maybe reaching the hands down to the floor. And breathe. So if I didn't have my blocks, honestly, I would not be able to relax into this pose. I would feel like I was going to grip everything, just holding on for dear life. But since I have these underneath, I can use that for support. And then I can feel comfortable to actually hold this hip opener and lower back release. Just a couple more breaths. And walk those hands in. Take your time to release blocks if you have them there, and very carefully unfold those legs. Extend legs straight forward. We are going to rotate toes out, toes in, toes out, toes in. And this is just rotating the femur in the hip socket. Great, just a couple more times. Also gives your knees a break from being bent. Okay, let's try our fire log on the other side. So what we do is start with simple cross-leg pose with your left ankle in front. Sit tall. So this is where you're going to be. Then when it's time, you'll fold forward and just hold this stretch here. You could do butterfly as well if you feel like you'd like to do that. Or we can try our fire log. So we bring the heels out away from us a little bit, flex the feet, take this leg. So ideally, it's right up on the thigh, and I should be able to plop both knees down to the floor. Not happening. Not happening for me. It's not very pretty. So I'm going to bring this foot down a little lower. And then I've got to really support this knee over here because it's hanging way up in space. Maybe I can get it to this block. This one's got to be supported too. Maybe. You know what I'm talking about, right? Sometimes these poses are like, man, could I really relax in this? You know, maybe for me, I need to give it up on this side and I just need to do simple cross-leg pose. So we just have to go with what we have, right? Okay, so let's go forward, reach out, and we'll hold 60 seconds. We have to do what's right for our bodies, given what we have today in this present moment. Take some nice deep breaths. We're just here for a minute. And just 2 more breaths. And 1 more. And walk yourself back in. Remove those props. Give yourself a pat on the back. We made it through. Okay, our last one is in Yin Yoga is called Swan. It's actually pigeon, but we're going to do a modified version today. So if we keep our right leg in front, we'll come to a Z sit position with the left leg behind. And you can sit up on a cushion on this right hip, and we're just going to fold straight down over that leg to stretch the hip. I'm going to use my yoga block underneath the forehead. And we've got a 2-minute hold in this one. It's just a great hip opener. If you want to do full swan or full pigeon, you're going to take this left leg and send it behind you and lengthen it all the way back into that full expression of the pose. If you're in modified swan or modified pigeon and this isn't feeling okay, you can lay on your back and do your figure 4 stretch, crossing the right ankle over the left thigh and pulling those knees in towards you. And we just want to sink into that stretch and breathe. We've done quite a few hip openers today, so it might feel a little bit easier to come into this last one as everything's really been stretched out and relaxed and released. So just go with that. Try to feel supported and relaxed as much as possible. And then find the breath pattern that works best for you today. Maybe the 3-part breath would be nice, or the sinking breath. Relax through your shoulder blades and upper back, through your glute and lower back. If you're bent forward and that's starting to feel uncomfortable, maybe before you completely exit the pose, you could just try sitting up a little bit more and see if that helps. And just about 15 seconds remaining on this side. Last breath in. And then rising all the way up. Very carefully, bring that back leg in. And then just place both feet in front of you. Reach underneath your thighs. Round your back. Drop your chin to your chest. Releasing your spine. And then we'll sit back up. Taking our modified swan or pigeon, we'll bring the left foot in front. The right leg goes behind in our Z sit. You can prop up on that cushion and take your body forward any amount. Fold over that leg. I really like to support the forehead here, if at all possible. You can stack up as many blocks as you want, or you can make your fist into 2 stacks and place your forehead right on top of your fists. So when we do a hip opener practice, we're releasing those hips. The yogis of old believed that we carry a lot of emotions in our hips, and that's what contributes to making them tight. So sometimes, if that is the case for you, when you're releasing your hips, you might release emotions, and they're not always maybe like you want to shed a tear. They could be happy emotions. But let's face it, in this time of COVID-19, we've got a lot of emotions that have been bottled up. Maybe not from being able to see our loved ones, or worrying about people, or being ill and having family members sick. So let's just try to also release emotions today that we might have bottled up inside as we're holding this last hip opener. And just a few more breaths on this side. If you feel like you need to come up sooner, feel free to let that go. And let's take one more breath here. And walk yourself up. Carefully bring that right leg, the one that's to the side, around. Bend both knees. Reach under your thighs. Pull back a little bit, round your back, drop your chin towards your chest, tucking your tailbone under, a nice curve there of the spine. And then we're going to come into our caterpillar one more time. And this is a nice option just to tuck a block underneath your thighs a little bit so your knees can bend, so you have this little curve, or maybe it's a wrapped up towel or a cushion. And we'll reach the the yoga strap underneath the sole of the feet. Give it a pull back. Lengthen your spine, flex at the ankles, hinge forward or around the back. You might be able to hold the bottoms of the feet. Or if you're really flexible, another option for your block is to place it in front of your feet. And if you're stretchy enough, you can reach your block with your fingers and stretch forward. This is our last 1 minute here. Our final stretch to enjoy. Take some deep breaths. Full breaths into the back body. And maybe sink a little bit deeper for our last couple of breaths. And then release your props. And come back up to a comfortable seat. The remainder of our practice will come into dynamic stretching. So sometimes after we've held poses for longer periods of time, it just feels great in our body just to move through ranges of motion. So we'll start with side bending, lengthening the right arm up, open up through the lats, and then to the other side. Excuse me. We're never really stopping and holding. This is very dynamic and mobile movement. This will also prepare us to get ready for the remainder of our day and feel more active and vibrant, ready to move, maybe get outside and go for a walk. Might be nice enough today to get out into the yard. So whatever you need to do for your day, this is going to get you moving and ready to go. Now with this side bend, we'll start to add a rotation. So side bend, rotate, reach across, come up, side bend, rotate, reach. Just creating that mobility in your back, in your shoulders, and using the breath. Exhale when you reach, inhale to come up. One more each side. Now coming into a twist, bring your arms to goalpost, rotate to the right, look behind, come back center, rotate to the left. And you're using your core muscles to perform this dynamic flexibility movement. And as you twist to the right, you can bring your left hand across the knee. Give yourself a little bit of extra press into that thigh to get a little bit more range of motion. We exhale into the twist. Inhale to return. One more each side. And come center and release down. We'll come into downward facing dog and we'll be moving, pedaling out the ankles to stretch our calves. Bring your hands to your mat, come to all fours, tuck your toes underneath, lift your hips up and push one heel down and push the other heel. Just moving back and forth at a nice pace, never really holding. Stretch and stretch. One more each side. And then drop your knees back down to your mat. Inhale, rise up. Exhale to child's pose. Inhale, sweep up. Exhale, child's pose. 3 more with the breath. Maybe adding a little baby back bend at the top. One more time, breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in, come up to those knees. Turn to the right, reach the hand behind towards your ankle. Reach up, turn to the left, reach. Now you can do this with your toes tucked under. Stretch back and stretch back. So we're twisting, lengthening your quadriceps and your hip flexors. One more each side. And then press your palms at your heart center. Rise up to stand. We don't oftentimes close our yoga practices standing up, but when we're getting ready to go on to our day, it's a really nice way to close our practice. We'll come into mountain pose and just stand nice and tall. Lengthen your spine, loop your shoulders up, back, and down. Lift your heart a little bit. Let's just close our eyes for a moment and notice how you're feeling today. Notice the benefits of your yin practice. And then we'll place our palms at heart center into our Namaste or Anjali Mudra. We express our gratitude and honor for this opportunity to take care of our bodies and to practice together as a virtual community. And the light and the love and peace that resides within me honors the light and love and peace in each and every one of you. Namaste. Thank you for joining me. If you need to scoot, I'll see you next time. If you can chat for a moment, hang on with me, and I'd like to hear how the bodies are feeling today.